Welcome everybody to another edition of FGI TV. I'm Jeff Bergerson, aka JT Bergerson on daily fantasy sites. My partner, Zach Turcotte, aka Mysteriously. You can find us at fantasygolfinsider.com. We're happy to be back from Whistling Straits. We spent the weekend there watching the PGA Championship, a great event. A little bit warm on the course. We got fried up pretty good, right, Zachary?
My lips are still crispy.
It was very warm, but it was a fun event. We saw all the players, a lot of action, so it was a good time. What made it even better was we had an outstanding week with our picks, our recommendations. We have been flooded with tweets and emails from our members telling us how well they did. Last week we offered a contest. The person who did the best in the Millionaire Maker gets one of these coveted polos for FGI, and we actually had a member take third or tie for third in the Millionaire Maker event on DraftKings. That was Ron Van Elsis. His screen name was Hoodoo Guru. So Ron, we're gonna send you a polo in the mail. We also have some other people we want to mention. We can't possibly mention everybody. It's a laundry list of people. We'll just throw out some people. Kevin Clancy, Ryan Sablotny, Luke Siegel, Trammell Taylor, Modified DFS, Darren Manser, Jared Larson, Jeff Townsend, Discount Belichick, and Mark Connolly. All cashed in big time last week.
Yeah, a lot of these folks were in the top 100 here, the Millionaire Makers. So, I mean, we were just all over the board when we offered the contest. I figured hopefully we'll have maybe one or two people here in the top 100. And we had people all Sunday afternoon sending me messages. Here's my size shirt, just let me know when it's in. I said, right. Yeah, you're 50th, but we actually have a guy who's up there in a logjam of a tie with about 27 other people for third place. So we kind of figured that Ron had it pretty well wrapped up.
It's a good thing, and it's a huge accomplishment. So congrats to all the people I listed. Congrats to everybody else who did well. There's 188,000 people in the Millionaire Maker. So to get in the top, the top 10,000 is a tremendous accomplishment. But to get in the top 500 and even the top 100 is amazing. So nice work out there, FGI members. That's awesome. Let's keep it going. One thing that I'll get to before we recap the tournament and our actual picks was I mentioned this in the preview column this week, and that is this was the last major, the PGA Championship. The FedEx Cup playoffs are coming up, and the final one will be late September. But fantasy golf doesn't go away. The fall time for PGA and DFS is incredibly profitable, and probably the most profitable time of year. Couple reasons for that is a lot of the attention, the coverage, the information kind of gets spread out to football. A lot of the content providers are focusing more on football and neglecting golf. You don't have to worry about that from us. We're all golf 12 months of the year. We cover it in and out. We're watching the European Tour, especially the Web.com Tour. A lot of the rookies are coming up in the fall. No one knows who these guys are. We've been looking at the Web.com Tour, researching it. Last year, we were on guys like Justin Thomas and Tony Finau from the start. And when you're some of the only people who know who these guys are, you got to get a huge edge over the field. Another reason is you're going to have a lot of people coming in from the football in the fall who have been on hiatus from the DFS sites, and they're going to be trying golf and seeing what it's all about. We're going to have a huge edge on them because they don't know what to do as far as strategy goes or players. So there's a huge opportunity in the fall, and we just want to make sure that you keep going throughout the fall and take advantage of that profitable opportunity.
And one other interesting thing I just thought of today that I saw a couple different articles about was that DraftKings, and I'm not sure if you caught this or not, DraftKings actually just got their gaming license for the UK. They plan on launching there in Q4 of this year with even bigger plans to expand in Q1 of 2016. So expect the European Tour to actually be picked up and brought onto the DraftKings platform next year. So what that means for you is to really keep focusing, because there's going to be a lot of big tournaments that are still taking place over in Europe late into the fall and early into January. As they like to get some of their bigger events in before the bigger part of the PGA Tour kicks off, and they lose some of those guys. So start paying attention, because the European Tour will be covered by DraftKings sooner than not, and the contest should be getting even bigger than they are right now.
And that's going to be a huge opportunity for FGI members, because we're going to know so much more than the people who are new to the game or just following it because of the European Tour. So.
Yeah, and if you haven't checked out on our site, I know a lot of people just look at our column write-ups every week, but we've got a page called Who's Hot every week. It's actually talking about who's in the best form. And that page covers every event, not just the PGA Tour, but the European PGA Tour as well, so that we're never really too surprised. When a lot of these names come up week to week and we're able to give pretty good recommendations on some of these sleepers, it's because we've been tracking them the whole time. And that's available on our website. Under the Who's Hot tab, you'll get a list of the tournaments going back about 6 months or so that we've kind of given a different point system for each event to rank guys. Our own little who's number one in the FGI universe as far as play, and that takes into account both U.S. and international players.
And strength of field, too.
Sure.
So guys who are finishing better in the majors get a lot more points than, say, the Barracuda or the Barbasol tournament, where the field isn't as tough. So
yeah.
Should we talk a little bit about the PGA Championship? Talk about our picks a little bit, Zachary.
Might as well while we're here. We had a really great week. I was really excited. Going into last week with a field as thick as the PGA Championship, where you've got so many players out there who could conceivably be contending, I wanted to do a little bit bigger write-up. I typically will write up about 15 players or so each week. This past week I expanded that. I went to 25, but what I did to compensate a little bit for that, to let you know which players to really focus on, was I took a core group of 10 guys, and that core group of guys were Jordan Spieth, Jason Day, Justin Rose, Henrik Stenson, Bubba Watson, Hideki Matsuyama, Brooks Koepka, Brandon Grace, Danny Willett, and Robert Streb. And I basically put into the article, these are the 10 guys I want you to be building all of your teams around. If you want to go outside to our peripherals, and I included about 15 of those or so, go ahead. You're going to need a few of them if you're building a ton of teams, but if you're making your cash game teams, if you're making your main millionaire maker teams, I want you to focus on these guys. Don't get too fancy with it. And I wasn't sure how well that would go over, but 10 of 10 made it through the cut. Obviously, that's a fantastic start. And then all the feedback that we got from our FGI members, because a ton of those guys ended up finishing right up at the top 10. So all the people who flooded their lineups with those guys again and again did extremely well. So I was very happy with those picks. We had a couple sleepers who kind of missed out. Soren Kjeldsen was a guy who had played well the previous week. He kind of missed out. Pat Perez, I think he
disappointed.
He disappointed us a little bit. He was on a couple of teams, but overall very, very happy with the picks, and it showed with our results as well as the results of all of our subscribers. So I was really happy with that. Your picks were similarly solid, I think. For
our picks were very similar. They were right. And we identified the top 5 guys who finished on the leaderboard. So anytime you can do that, you've done pretty good. They were a couple of the favorites, but hey, it doesn't matter. In the Millionaire Maker, you have to be right.
Well, that's the point we tried to make with folks, in each of our columns, that in major tournaments, it's pretty rare that you see just an overwhelming upset among the top 10. You may see a guy win the event who is a surprise. That's obviously happened from time to time, but for the most part in major tournaments, the leaderboard is pretty crowded with those high-end players.
We're going to sock that back in our memory for the bigger tournaments with a huge number of entries. And we need to stick. We can't do a balanced lineup. We can't ignore the top 10 guys because they're going to find their way up the leaderboard.
And it's tempting because of the way the pricing is so soft. It's tempting to just take those guys in the middle 8,000s, high 7,000 range and put one team after another thinking, why not? Why couldn't these guys all contend? But it just doesn't happen. As you saw yesterday, you kind of needed a combination. You needed that Day-Rose combination. That was the big combination.
That was the popular one,
It was either going to be Spieth-Day, Spieth-Rose, or Day-Rose. One of those 3 you had to have if you were going to win one of those big contests.
Yep. So overall, successful week. We want to keep going this week. Anything else to add for the PGA Championship?
Nothing on the championship. Why don't you get us to our shot of the week?
All right. The shot of the week is kind of a fun one, being at the PGA Championship. And actually, if we had more shot glasses, it would be the shots of the week. And we're talking about
10 of them.
Our buddy, John Daly, who threw up a 10 on the par 3. And we're going to list his shots.
Yeah, just so you imagine, a par 3, 10 shots. How does that actually happen?
Go ahead. Shot 1, 215 yards to the water. Zachary.
Penalty. drop. Shot 3, 195 yards to water.
Penalty shot.
Shot 4. Or actually, we're on shot 5 now. I'm already losing a little. Shot 5.
191 yards to water. Way to go, Johnny. And then to top it off, let's 3-putt for a 10. So that's our shot of the week. Thank you, John Daly, for providing us that amusement.
There was one more water shot, too, as he picked up his wedge and chucked it into the lake.
That's right. They showed the video clip of some kid climbing into the water and grabbing a souvenir. So
yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was classic John Daly. I was just glad that we were a part of such a historic moment in golf.
The highlight of the week.
Yes, absolutely.
So this week.
We have one other bet that
you did have a bet. All right, let's talk a little bit about that.
We almost forgot about that. But
Let's
Roger Casey, Ryan Cook, both of you guys were doubters last week. You hated Jason Bone. You tried to tell me I had no idea what I was talking about. And what happened? He covered my bet for me inside the top 42. There was never a doubt in my mind the whole way through. That's not really true. He knows I was sweating it the whole weekend. But man, was I excited. Despite all the other DFS wins that I had on this event, this bet here was the one that I will probably be remembering most. And so, Roger, I just want you to know I've got a pair of shorts with a drawstring on them so that I can just continue to loosen them up as they bring pound after pound of crab legs out to the table to me in Boston. And don't forget, there'll be probably a couple of cocktails going along with that too. So thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate the action. Just keep bringing me that easy money week after week.
Anything else to add, or is that it?
No, I think that's pretty good.
Okay. So this week on to the Wyndham Championship.
Oh, I couldn't be more excited.
It's the definition of a filler.
Sure, it's just kind of the.
Although they do have some big names this week. Some guys are trying to accumulate some last-minute points before the FedEx Cup tournament starts. So the Wyndham Championship played on Sedgefield Country Club, 7,100 yards, a shorter course than we've been seeing lately, par 70. Key stats we're going to look at are overriding is greens and regulation. You look at the stats year after year. Actually, last year, here's an example of the top 20 players who finished best in greens hit. 16 of them were in the top 25 in the standings. 3 of the top 4 greens and reg guys finished in the top 5. A couple years ago, Patrick Reed hit the most greens, won the tournament. You can look back, 5-6 years, you see common trend, greens and regulation. Another thing we're going to look at is par 4 scoring. Obviously, par 70. Par 4 birdies or better average. We want to find those guys who are able to put up birdies and eagles, like Justin Thomas, Brooks Koepka, like we talk about, accumulate points on sites like DraftKings and Fantasy Aces where they reward birdies and eagles so much more than they penalize bogeys and doubles.
And although there's only 2 par 5 holes, those are also very important to take a look at as well. Maybe not weight quite as heavily, but you're going to have to be birdieing a lot of those holes if you're going to want to succeed. So I would also kind of add on there as an addendum to take a look at par 5 scoring.
It's going to take scoring overall in general, because the winner is average about 18 under par every year in this event, so you're going to need to score to win.
So it'll be just like a normal PGA Championship.
Right, just like
this last weekend, minus 20 somewhere in there.
Right, just like we would have guessed, right?
Exactly.
The only other factor that we're going to look at are guys who are on the bubble to make the FedEx Cup playoffs, to get in the top 125 guys in FedEx Cup points. There's a few guys on the bubble, so we can look at that as a little extra motivation. I'm not favoring it too heavy because these guys are motivated week in and week out. They're trying their best to make cuts. They're not going to try any extra harder, probably. It's a good side note and might push a few guys, but overall, it's not going to make Martin Keimer play that much harder so he can accumulate enough points to break into the top 125.
I guess we were talking about that earlier. I mean, my thought on that is if some of these guys were really diehard, they're real serious. I mean, a guy like Keimer skips out on so many events.
He could play more PGA events.
He knows where he's at in the standings. He very easily could come into the Greenbrier. He could come into the John Deere. One of those. If he really wanted to qualify for the playoffs, he would. So I think for some of those fringe guys who are more marginal types of players, it may be a bigger deal. But if you're a guy like a Luke Donald, if you're a guy like a Martin Keimer, you've made your money in your career at this point. Yeah, it's nice if you can qualify for the playoffs, but you're already such a long shot, and you know how far back you are in the standings. I'm not going to pay any extra money for those guys. If those guys are overpriced, they're overpriced. I'm not going to go up and try to chase down a result on them. But still take advantage. Use some of those guys in your lineup, because there will be some of those guys who will be thinking to try to make a little bit of an extra push.
It's an interesting side note.
Don't overweight that.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about the players, Zachary.
Yeah, interesting pricing. It goes from being extremely soft. I think last week was about as soft as they possibly could have made it. I mean, when you opened it up and you saw Koepka there at 7,800, I mean, it almost forced you to put him into most of your lineups last week, which we were glad eventually that we did. I thought Jeffrey was going to throw himself out of our van on the way to Wisconsin last week, as I would read the scores every 10 minutes or so, and +2, +3. +4, and then watched him pounding the steering wheel, muttering over and over again, "So stupid, so stupid, stupid, just fade him, so stupid." And then, of course, as we get to our hotel rooms, we watch him shoot 5 straight birdies, and then bogey a couple times. And I mean, just classic Koepka.
It's the type of player he is.
Yeah, and he's back this week. This is the first time DraftKings has made it interesting. They've got him at 10,800, so he's still going to be popular.
I still like him.
He's got a nice skill set, so I don't see his popularity dropping off a lot. But at this point, if you do fade him a little bit, or if you fade him in certain contests, it could be to your benefit. Because most of the courses that we've been looking at probably over the last couple months have really been much more favorable to longer hitters. We've looked at total driving quite a bit. This week it's less so on that, a little bit on the accuracy side, mostly on iron play. So
look, it's a shorter course, but what stats are we looking at? Greens in regulation.
Sure.
Brooks Koepka, what does he rank? 19th in greens in regulation. Sure. Par 4 scoring, 10th. Par 4 birdies or better, 4th.
Putts the ball well.
Putts the ball well. He's 5th in strokes gained putting. 34th in strokes gained tee to green. I don't care what the length of the course is.
He's got to be.
This dude can play it.
In this field, he's probably either number 1 or number 2 in overall fantasy points scoring.
Oh yeah.
Matsuyama.
Yep.
Matsuyama was up there after another sloppy effort. I don't think Hideki is going to be quite as high. So,
no.
It's got to be Koepka out of this field right here. So I think we still give Koepka the thumbs up. If he gets into these tougher fields over the next month, and he's still 10,800 compared to some of these other guys, then it's interesting. But in a weaker field like this, where he should play well, he's expected to play well, and the course shouldn't really challenge him as much as a lot of the other courses where he's been racking up, top 20 finishes, top 10 finishes. I think he's still a pretty reasonable play. So I think we both are in agreement there that we like Koepka. One of the guys in my core last week, he let us down a little bit. Hideki Matsuyama. Here's a guy, and I could feel this happening. First day comes out, like as he does with most majors, posts, -4, -5. He's in the lead early on. He's looking great. He's on cruise control. But in the back of my head, I thought there's a very good chance he's just going to kind of smoothly even out the rest of the tournament. Sure enough, the guy did nothing the rest of the way. So, I'm not real sure how to feel about the guy in the stronger events, but in a weaker field, he hasn't played in very many weak fields like this.
He has not, and he's usually top 20 in the tougher fields. So this week he poses a pretty good-looking opportunity.
Yeah.
The only problem I have is his price tag, which
Sure.
is 10.9. Is that too much for you?
I don't think so. I mean, again, if we're looking for a guy who's gonna win the event, we have to kind of start looking towards the top of this field. And I think a lot of people are probably going to be off on him because they're used to, in the bigger fields, they're used to seeing him at that 8,000, 8,500 price tag, and they've seen him the last couple of weeks be mildly or even more so disappointing than what we've expected him to do. So I think he's left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. So seeing that price go up by 2,000 or 2,500, I mean, it was $8,000 last week, so he's $2,900 price bump.
Yep.
I think a lot of people will probably be off of him and on Koepka, so that if you were looking for something good to pivot to, I think a guy like Matsuyama
Sure.
or even a guy like Snedeker makes a lot of sense.
Snedeker does make sense this week.
I think so. I mean, if you look at this course, he's not your biggest hitter out there. He's an okay tee to green kind of guy, but nothing special on that side. But he putts really well. He's a pretty decent iron player. We saw him hit a hell of a shot, actually, from the second hole on Saturday. Probably the best shot on that hole. Everybody came up. We wanted to scream out at one point, hit it longer than you think, because every guy would hit it short and roll back down the hill. Snedeker was the one guy who put it just past the pin, had it roll back, and had about a 6-inch putt there for birdie. So he played that hole.
So I think his hip is fine now.
Yep.
I mean, he was able to get through Whistling Straits, so I think his hip is no longer a concern. I think he makes a good play. A couple interesting guys at 9,600 and 9,500 are Bill Haas, Webb Simpson. They're both local guys. They both played at Wake Forest. They know the course well, and their tournament history is outstanding.
Pretty exceptional.
Probably the two best tournament histories in the field this week. So I like both of those guys this week, despite the fact that their current form isn't the best. But I think that's an okay thing. People are going to look at current form and see they're struggling, but tournament history is really good. And like Webb Simpson plays in his home course at Quail Hollow, every year he seems to repeat performance and play well, and this is the same here.
Yeah, familiarity is really good. I am still very hesitant. I mean, Simpson's he's really burned us a couple times. Yeah, he was great at Wells Fargo. He's been so mediocre in a lot of areas. I can't give an outright overweight.
He's a good putter, though.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, he's
tee to green. He's one of the best on the PGA Tour. It's the fact that
he's an absolute wizard, but he can't put the ball at all. I mean, you can't make the hole big enough for the guy to put the ball in. So he's got to get it within a foot or two as a tap in for you to feel pretty comfortable about it. But so I can't put an overweight on him, but certainly the familiarity, that's the biggest factor.
Yeah.
His familiarity with this course.
The other guy that I like, Justin Thomas.
Seems to have turned it around quite a bit. You know, he started the season really strong, went through a bit of a slump, a lot like Berger did, but then pulled himself back out of it. Now the last few weeks he's kind of back to his usual point scoring self.
He's been good.
Yeah, so I like Thomas.
I like Thomas as well.
Great tee to green player. Strong iron player. He's one of those guys that he's going to be an up and coming star for years and years to come. Hits a ton of birdies too, so it's a factor that we talked about before. You're gonna want that. You're gonna want a guy who can score a lot for you. So he is worth a little bit of the risk this week as well. So I think those are kind of the star players, the blue chips that we like for the week.
The one guy I just wanted to ask you about, and we agreed adamantly last week on him, was Brendan Grace.
Sure.
We both liked him a lot going into the tournament. What do you think this week, going into much different style course?
Yeah.
Different event, obviously.
You're gonna have to be careful with him this week. I mean, he's a fantastic links player, so he likes those links courses. Did great at the U.S. Open, did great at the British Open, and then great last week at Whistling Straits. So 3 links style courses. But then you look back at what he did immediately after the U.S. Open. He went out to the Travelers. Not an exceptionally difficult event, and he completely blew the cut. So, I'd be a little concerned. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to be in on him this week.
He's going to be a popular player, obviously, like he was
at the Travelers.
At the Travelers, people are on him following the U.S. Open.
Be careful though. Don't get cute and put him on your cash game teams, because he does have the potential here to slip a little bit after. And again, he was up near the top. He at one point even took the lead on Saturday, only to really crumble with a few hideous shots on Sunday afternoon. And I think he ended up in 4th place. Overall, so there may be also a little bit of that emotional kind of letdown coming off of the last major like that. So I like him. I think he sets up pretty well for it, but be a little bit cautious. He does have that history now this year of having a letdown event.
Got to separate different style courses.
Yeah,
and he plays really well on certain type courses. He could still play well this week. However, it's not a links course, so we're not big on him this week.
Yeah.
All right.
And kind of getting into the value side of things, we get back to some of our old favorites again. The first guy I think that pops out to us, and will probably pop out to 20% or so of owners, will be Will Wilcox.
Will Wilcox is a popular DFS guy. His form is tremendous.
Yeah.
He in statistical categories. If statistics dictated finishes in tournaments, he would have won several events at this point this year.
Yeah.
He's coming in hot, and on DraftKings, he's 8,400 this week.
So right about the average price.
I'm big on Will Wilcox this week. Zachary, you all in on him too?
I can't be all in. I'll probably be I'll probably be most of the way in on it. But there's still the chance that within some of those smaller GPP fields, and there's not a lot of those this week. Typically, when I'm looking at those, I'm talking about the $1,000 buy-ins. A lot of times I'll look to try to fade some of those guys just because the ownership will get so high. You'll see 45, 50% ownership. I mean, in the $1,000 clubhouse this last week, Jason Day was owned by 47.5% of the field. Bubba Watson, 47.5% of the field. So if you can identify who those guys are and dodge them a little bit, obviously it killed you if you dodged Day, but it didn't hurt you quite as much if you missed out on Bubba.
Yeah.
But in these smaller fields this week, he's going to be owned by 40% of the field, somewhere in that range. And Will Wilcox, he's been known to break a few hearts this year in terms of missing cuts on Friday afternoon. So I think I will own him in my lineups. I'm not going to go out of my way to fade him, but there will be a handful of contests where I specifically try to overlook him, and just in case he does fall apart and have a Friday afternoon collapse where he's sitting right on the cut line and falters on 18 like he has at least a couple times for us this season. So
who else do you like in that middle tier, the value area, who stands out to you?
Well, there's a couple of guys here who have interesting course history. I know that you wrote up Carl Peterson.
Yep.
in your previous.
Because I'm big on fitness. So as I mentioned last week.
Exactly.
But he went to NC State,
right.
And great tournament history here. So the only thing, he's strictly a GPP play though. He's not a cash game guy. He's had a roller coaster season. He'll take a top 10 and then miss 2 straight cuts. So GPP only, but I think he's got a lot of upside this week. So I think he's decent in the middle tier here.
Right. I mean, his stats, you look at his numbers, they don't really shine overall for the course. He's a decent putter. He's okay hitting greens in regulation. There's not a lot of other areas where he really shines, and looking at it, it's familiarity with the course, a little bit on the course history.
Yep.
But yeah, again, he can miss some cuts there, so be a little bit careful. Another guy who in past has missed cuts but seems to have kind of turned the corner and is playing a little bit hot right now is Chad Campbell.
Chad Campbell is a good cut maker. I wrote him up as well as a decent sleeper. His price tag's a little bit steep. It's $8,000 this week, which is a little high.
Not excited about that.
So I like him for cash games if you're going to go a balanced approach. But he's not going to give you a lot of ability to go grab a top guy, taking him on $8,000 just to get a guy through the cut. So cash game, but I mean his price tag's a little bit high. Anyone else in that range who you're liking?
Yeah, I would say Stuart Sink is a guy we have to take a look at. A guy who hits a ton of greens in regulation. He's had some real nice results recently in tournaments. So, and his price tag is not too bad. It's in the low 7,000 range. I think he's 7,100 or 7,200, somewhere around there. 7,200 as far as that's concerned. So pretty good tee to green guy. Pretty good iron player. So definitely Stuart Sink would be another guy in that middle category that I like.
Okay.
And we'll give one sleeper out. We don't want to give away too much. We obviously do a lot of great content within our articles. But one sleeper, a guy who I can't figure out how his price tag wasn't a little bit higher. It's Vaughn Taylor. Yep. He's down there at 6,700 again this week. He's a guy who's made 10 out of 10 cuts this year. He's had some real nice finishes. He's played really well in quite a few tournaments over the last few months. The one big problem again is that people are gonna massively overload on the guy. And the last tournament that he played in, I believe it was a Quicken Loans just a few weeks ago.
Yep.
He had one really fantastic round that kind of overshadowed 3 really kind of mediocre rounds that were in there. So it looked really good at the end, but he was right on the edge. He was -2.
Yeah. He finished up T30 though.
Yeah, if he lost another stroke there on Friday, he would have missed the cut. But again, consider that when you're making your lineups, before you start putting in your 20, 30, 40, whatever how many lineups you're going to play every week, make your ownership chart so you know ahead of time, here's all the guys who are going to be owned the most by the rest of the field that's out there, because he will be a tremendously popular play this week.
He's 25th in greens in regulation, the key stat this week. Like you said, he's been consistent in making cuts, significantly underpriced. He's going to allow you the ability to go get some higher price guys to mix with. And if he makes the cut, he has T30 at Quicken Loans, T41 at RBC Canadian, and T10 at Barbasol. So I think he's a decent sleeper.
Yeah, he's a very solid play. So that's all the picks that we're going to take a look at for the week. Jeff, what do you got for us to get us out of here?
Couple items to note here. If you haven't signed up at Fantasy Aces, we recommend you do so. We've heard from a lot of people who not only had luck in their cash games, a couple of GPPs last week, but we're getting a lot of feedback from people who are winning. And I think it's because we're understanding the strategy. It's a little bit different strategy and scoring than other sites, even DraftKings. Check out Roger Casey's column for Fantasy Aces. He'll walk you through the strategy. You can make some money on Fantasy Aces. Be sure to sign up through our link, though, on our site because we get some credit for that, and we can make our site better because of that. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just click that little subscribe button under the video. It would help us a lot. Hit us up on Twitter. Zach handles the Twitter. He's always happy to answer your questions.
Yeah, I'm going to do another Periscope this week.
Okay.
I just wanted to try it out last week. I didn't even post the link on that, but it went fine. I think we had about 10 folks or so who came in and asked questions. So at 9 o'clock Wednesday night Central Time, I'll get onto Periscope and answer questions for a good 10-15 minutes or so, as long as we have any interest in. I'm not just kind of staring at myself in the camera. So
become a member at fantasygolfinsider.com. We have a ton of good premium content, so be sure to be a part of the FGI team. Zachary, you wanted to add something else?
Oh, a couple segments here tonight. One thing you should know if you ever go to a PGA tournament and you really want to take one picture, one single picture of Jason Bone as he's walking from 100 yards away from where he hit a shot. Be real careful. The phone Nazis at these events are out there. I was spotted from about 30 yards away.
And what'd you get?
And if you look on my ticket here, I got a nice black W. It was
breaking the law.
Right. So I had like my scarlet letter that I had to hold on to my ticket for the rest of the day. Had I gotten any more warnings,
how dare you?
I'd have been out of there. So just a little course etiquette. The other thing that we had a request for tonight is that I talk about the scotches I like, because I'm a real scotch connoisseur.
All right.
What I wanted to just let you know about scotch and why I like scotch so much and the type that I drink. I tend to drink 18-year scotch, and the big reason for that is because 18, it's bigger than 15, and it's also bigger than 12, and it looks great on my Fantasy Golf Insider glass. So
nice.
Cheers.
That's all for this week. Thanks for joining us. If you have any questions, give us an email, shoot us a tweet. Good luck this week, and we'll see you next week.
Good luck. All right, Jeffrey, I know you were a little upset at the tournament this last weekend. Who did you want to give the finger to?
Adam Scott, I'm going to give you the finger, and actually this isn't the right finger that I want to give you this week, because frankly, I took you as a contrarian pick in a couple of lineups, and in a week where the best of the best rose to the top, you sunk to the bottom. Guys scratched and clawed their way through the cut, like Jim Furyk and Bill Haas. Even though they didn't have their A game, they made it through that cut, and you were yellow-bellied, and you didn't make the cut, and you cost that lineup. So you, my friend Adam Scott, will have my finger this week.